It really does warm my heart to see that fitness trackers and smartwatches are really starting to take off in today's market. And they keep getting better and better. And in some instances, cheaper. Which is the subject of today's video, the ZINYUNG fitness tracker, or light smartwatch. Now this watch is one of the best looking budget fitness trackers I've seen yet. The band does feel a little bit cheap since it's made of a type of poly fabric, but it doesn't stop it from looking good. And the look of the watch face is also pretty good since it's a crisp 240 by 240 display. Yes, even though it's a square display in a circular watch face, the blacks do disappear on the borders into the rest of the watch face, so it isn't too noticeable. There is a single touch input at the bottom that you can tap through the menu or do a long press to select something. But there is no swipe features, which is kind of disappointing, and I would have really liked to have seen that, especially since the dial doesn't do anything except bring you back to the home page. It's like a big back button. So navigating the menus is rather tedious, especially if you miss the one that you were looking for and have to vigorously tap your way through to get back to it, which just kind of feels like a lazy oversight to me. But there are some good key features, and we're going to start by the good features first. One, it's IP67 or something equivalent. I don't know if they actually got the official certification when the price of the watch is this low, but it does seem to be equivalent since I jumped in the shower with it and it never hurt it. So apparently getting it a little bit wet is perfectly fine. One of the features that makes it a good light smartwatch is the push notifications. In the app that you use to configure the watch, Fit, you can select which apps which will push notifications to the smartwatch. Primarily phone calls and text messages is what you lean towards. And it does a good job since the screen is large enough for a watch to be able to read the messages easily. It's also very handy to have if you are not able to look at your phone freely, like if you're in some sort of meeting or in school or, you know, wherever you don't want to pull out your phone from your pocket or purse or whatever. You can just look at your wrist and know if it's worth your time. A nice feature to have. There is also an option for custom watch backgrounds. Not that you can really change too much of the UI, but you can add your own picture and stare at your loved ones. Or if you want to play around and have something that plays with making the borders disappear, you have that option as well. There's also a camera shutter button, which means that there will be a 3-second timer and you can tap it and put your phone somewhere else and control when you take the picture. Though you cannot see what the camera sees from your watch like more advanced smartwatches can. And sometimes it gets activated a little too easily and then will just take a picture when you don't want it to. So be aware of that. And another important feature is alarms. So say you don't want to wake your loved ones up and don't want to be blasting alarms through the whole house, you can have it vibrate on your wrist to wake you up in the morning, which is always a nice thing to have. Not to mention that there is also a weather panel. You only get pretty much one day forecast, but you can kind of see the highs and lows and the type of weather you'll have that day. It'd be nice to have 3 days, but one day is what you get. Now on to the bad, and this is where things get a little bit unfortunate. Now keep in mind we have to remember what the price of this watch is. It hovers just below $40, so it really is the price of a normal watch, which means that really what you should expect is not too much. And with all the features that I mentioned before, I would say that those alone would be worth the $40 price range if you want a light smartwatch. Emphasis on the light, with those features in mind. I mean, granted, you could get a Timex piece that is just a little digital watch display, and that can be $40 in itself. So let's keep those things in mind, but calling it a fitness tracker is just wrong because it does not track your fitness in any way, shape, or form. The very basic step counter that is the bread and butter of all fitness trackers is completely inaccurate and does not work. Any movement laterally with the smartwatch shaking it up and down registers as a step. So if you are a desk jockey and type all day, it's going to register those as steps, and you're going to meet your 8,000 step goal by noon. Better fitness trackers like the Xiaomi Mi Fit 3 or even the Mi Fit 4 at the same exact price range are much more accurate algorithmically since they can register what an actual true step is by realistic movements, not just... Now, next to the heart rate monitor. Sometimes it seems to be in the ballpark, but other times not so much. It's extremely unreliable at best. I went to check it at one point and saw that my heart rate was at 176 when I had just been sitting very calmly doing my work. According to I was running a marathon. And the fact that my cat registers at the same heart rate as me, and so does my mattress, also makes me question it. So I'm wondering if they're just duping numbers or the thing is just highly inaccurate. Especially when it came to blood pressure. My wife had the same blood pressure as me, my cat had the same blood pressure as me, and so did my mattress. Now, I keep mentioning my mattress, but that's what was next to me. If you put it against something that is a completely solid surface, it will tell you to put it on something that light can pass through. It'll say put it back on your wrist. But other things that the sensors can penetrate a little bit in, like soft surfaces like a mattress or a cat, it will then think that it can read things, and thus I was able to test it. And the numbers were the same as they were with me, which makes it very questionable. And the same with the O2 sensor and all that stuff. I wouldn't trust this thing at all when it comes to tracking your fitness. The sleep tracker seems to be roughly accurate as to when I fall asleep and wake up, but that's not the most complicated. Usually you want to measure the deep sleep, and since the heart rate monitor isn't very accurate, I don't know how accurate that reading would be. It gets a lot of demerits for that. Now, if they had just marketed it as a light smartwatch, like I had mentioned earlier, I would have been able to recommend it. But since most of you will be buying it for its fitness features that don't work, I can't recommend it in that sense and fashion, unless you go into it with that disclaimer knowing what it can and cannot do. But if you are indeed looking for a light smartwatch that looks nice, and I have had some compliments on it, then you're perfectly fine in getting this, since it does have some nice functions to it.